Okay, so we're going to look at a basic sort of vocal editing chain or a vocal processing chain that we can use to sort of just brighten up the vocals and make them sound nice and punchy. And we'll work on two different chains. We're going to work on one for the verses and one for the chorus. Also, I'll put reverse. Verse Fox. Because we're going to be using them in slightly different areas of the track, so one might be on a breakdown and one might be sort of while it's running. So we want to be able to play about with the different levels. So the first thing we're going to do is compress the vocal.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And we can loop that round.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if...
And we want to have a bit of compression on this, just to sort of even the sort of vocals out. The verses are sort of a bit flatter than the choruses. You can see there's the couple of sort of peaks that can be sorted out, whereas in the chorus there's sort of bigger peaks and there's a lot more dynamics in there that we want to sort of smooth out. And if you want to get in a bit more depth with compressors, we have a full compressor tutorial on the site that you can have a look at. So for vocals, I generally use the RMS, and what RMS means is that it's taking an average of this input signal as the detector for the threshold. What that means is that it's not looking at every single peak to determine what the sort of input signals like. It's only taking an average, and this means you get sort of less jittery sort of thresh or less jittery sort of compression on it. You're getting a sort of smoother balance, so it's better for vocals. Whereas drums or something with sort of a fast pattern of attacks would need a sort of peak compressor to sort of capture those. So we're going to be using RMS. Have our ratio relatively high, sort of somewhere between 5 and 10 works, depending on where in the song you're having it as well. If you have it, in amongst drums and it's in amongst quite loud stuff, you have a sort of smaller dynamic range to fit the vocals into and for them all to be heard. Whereas if it's somewhere in a breakdown where there's quieter bits of music around it, then you can ease back on the compression as the dynamics will sort of flow better in that. You don't have as much loud stuff around it to sort of distract, and the dynamics of the actual original vocal, you'll want to bring them through a bit more. So we'll just do a basic setting for now, and then as the track builds up, we can sort of adjust the compression. We might need to add more to it.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And we want a slower release again, so we don't want it just to spring right back off the compression when it sort of drops below the threshold. We want it to be a bit smoother.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And we can ease back on the attack, and this will let some of those initial attack portions of the vocal come through. Some of the clicks or the K's and the T's and the consonants, and it'll just help to give definition to the words.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
So that's a pretty decent setting, sounding good. The next thing we're going to do is just a bit of basic EQ. So we'll throw the EQ8 on, turn it to high quality, and we're really looking just for a bit of presence in the vocals. So somewhere around the sort of 6, 7, 8, 9K mark.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And that's probably all we really need EQ wise. We could go in and sort of edit some of the other elements when we have sort of the rest of the track going. We can sort of maybe try and tune it into the track a bit more, but for now I think that's giving us a nice bit of air on the vocal. The next thing I'm going to do is just add some space, and what we're going to do is create a group, and then we can assign some macros and we can adjust some of the some of the controls at once. So I'll fire in a simple delay, and I'm going to use this just to create a sense of space. So we're going to go for about 30 mils on one and about 15 mils on the other side, and then we can use our wet and dry balance to sort of bring up this space control.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And you can hear there that what's happening.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
What's happening there is that we've got a center sound, which is the original vocal, and we've added 2 delays, one on either side, that are slightly offset from each other. And what this does is when we bring our wet up, it sort of spreads the vocal out.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And that's a pretty nice vocal sound. And what we can now do is we can go in to our macro controls and we can assign the dry wet to macro 1. We can rename it, call it space. We can go into our threshold. Map to macro 2. And what we're going to do is put a limit on this control. So we only want it in between a couple of different values. So 50 is our lowest. We'll bring that up. And we'll actually reverse these rounds. So we want our that at about 12 and bring that down. And what this gives us is just a nice control for turning the amount of compression we want up, basically.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
So we've got our, well, we'll just rename that comp. And then we're going to just take the EQ on our vocal and add the gain to a macro. And again, we want our map mode. And we're just going to make sure that when we turn the knob up, we're getting presence, and when we turn it down, it's just flat. So there we go. Now we've got our controls for our presence. So we'll call that presence or air.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm.
We can spread the delay times out a bit to give us a bit more width.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And there we go. We've got a nice little audio effects rack. We'll rename this. That we can use on both our vocals just to sort of add a bit of space and air. And then the last thing I'm going to do on this one is just a delay track. And we're going to use our ping pong delay. And we'll set it to like 2s. And we'll set it to fully wet. And then we'll use our sends to control the amount.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And we want it just sort of up in the sort of air range, just a sort of nice bright bit of delay. We'll turn the feedback down a bit. And one of the things that we don't necessarily want is when the vocal's just playing, the delay to happen all the time. We only really want to hear it when the vocal stops.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
So we can put a a compressor with a side chain to the vocal.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. 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 Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And we can hear there that when the vocal's playing, the sort of compressor is turning down the volume of our delay a bit, and then when the vocal stops, we get sort of a bit more delay.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming. 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 Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
So there we go. We've got a bit of a setup there. So we can put a... And we've got our space and air controls. We've got our compression, and then we've got a nice delay on top.
Don't wake me if I'm dreaming.
And then we can also add the same effect to our chorus. Just copy and paste that across. Put a bit of delay on as well.
Love is a hurricane and washes away the pain and everything.
One of the things you'll notice now is obviously the side chain isn't being affected by the verse vocal. So what we can do is group the two vocals. And rename it Vox group, and then we can change the side change from the core or the verse Vox to the Vox group, and this will mean that anytime any vocals are playing, that delay will kick in.
Love is a hurricane and washes away the pain and everything I do for you. Love is a hurricane and washes away the pain and everything I do for you.
So there we go, there's our vocals pretty much sorted out. In the next tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at adding some chords around our vocals.